Okay, so our job today is we are going to design a building that we see in our community. So you just really want to brainstorm what buildings you see day to day in your community where you live, okay? So obviously you probably see your house every day. You see your school most days, so you can draw your house, your school. Some days you might see the grocery store. Some days you might see the library. Some days you might see the movie theater or the mall. So you want to pick a building in your community and I want you to draw it. Now, after you decide what you're going to draw, you need to decide what size of paper you should use. So I'm going to have different sizes available. We're not working big at all for this project. So I'm using a small sheet of paper because I'm going to draw just a house on this. But for instance, this piece of paper, I wanted to draw a skyscraper, so I needed a longer piece of paper to show that, okay? So that would be like in downtown St. Louis, my community down there, if I wanted to do a skyscraper. But for this one, I'm just going to do my house. So you always want to start with a pencil and draw light till you got it right. And think about what the building looks like that you're drawing. Okay, so after you draw your piece, we're going to outline it with a Sharpie. And I didn't put in all of my details with the pencil because I thought it might take a little too long. So what I'm doing now is I might go back and add a few more details just with my Sharpie because I trust myself with the Sharpie. If you don't trust yourself, then do it all with the pencil first. So for instance, I'm going to add some brick here on my chimney, and I didn't draw that with a pencil first because I knew I could just do this with my Sharpie. And use our skinny Sharpie. So my big Sharpie was way too big for these itsy bitsy flowers that I'm drawing. So I just switched to a skinny Sharpie. Okay, so here is two different kinds of buildings. So I have my house, that's what I see in my community. I see this every day because I live here. And I forgot I also have a window here. So I'm really trying to think back to what my house actually looks like and put in those details. So there we go, now it's better. And so this is a skyscraper that I would see if I went to downtown St. Louis and got to see all the big buildings. And that's still part of my community as well. It's just a little farther away from where I live. And I don't get to see it every day, but I still live near it and I get to see it sometimes. So you get to choose what kind of building you want. Now from here, we're going to color this in. You're going to have two choices for your coloring. Because it's so small, we don't want to use the big markers. So I do have some skinny markers, but the problem is I don't have red or blue. Hopefully one day I will get those. So I could use the skinny markers if I would like to, and I could color this in. And skinny markers are good because I can just fit into these small shapes a bit better. And I don't have that really fat tip kind of getting in the way and making me get outside of my lines. Okay? Or you can choose colored pencils. And colored pencils are nice because they also have a tiny tip. And I could get into the small shapes with this one. So I just have more control when I choose a smaller media to work with rather than the big clunky ones. Alright, so you want to color yours in. You could even combine the two together. So you could do some parts in marker, some parts in colored pencil if you wanted to. And what that's called a mixed media. You're mixing your materials. Okay. So I want to show you the cool thing with colored pencil real quick. Colored pencil, if you press hard, you can get a nice dark color. You don't want to press too hard that your pencil breaks. And if you press light, you can get a light color. So it almost is like you can get two different colors out of one pencil. I can get a dark blue and I can get a light blue, depending on how hard I push down. So you just want to color in your buildings. So now that I'm done coloring, this one I just use all colored pencil, and this one I use colored pencil and gray skinny marker. So I did mixed media and then just regular. You want to cut these out. So you're going to have to be very, very careful because these buildings are pretty small. So from here, now we need to make these buildings be able to become 3D. Right now they are 2D, that means they are flat. When they're 3D, that means they can stand up on themselves. Okay? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to just put a little tab on the back of it. So my house is small, so I can use actually a small kind of tab. So something just like this might work. And all I would do is fold it. So it becomes kind of like an L shape. And you're going to put glue right here. And that's going to stick to the back of your house and be able to stand up. Okay, so let's put some glue on and let's see if it works. So it's the L shape. I put the glue here. You don't want to put the glue on the bottom just yet because then it'll just glue to your table and you don't want that. So you line it up. The glue is on this side. And if your building is kind of wide, you might have to do two on either side, but I think I can get away with maybe just one here. Yep, it can stand up. I did a good job. So, if you have a taller building, you're going to need a longer tab, okay, because it has to go a little bit more on here, otherwise it'll just kind of sink down. So, I'll just take this longer strip, give it a fold, put some glue on one side. And see if that works. Okay, so see, this isn't really working too well, so my tab has to be longer. So I can get some new paper. And this is still wet, so I can just peel it off. Maybe this size will work. So it's kind of just trial and error. And we're just going to use scrap paper for this. And we'll see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so that works. So second time's the charm for that one. Okay, so from here, you're going to take your monoprint whichever one. You'd probably want to use like your actual print rather than your ghost print. Okay, and you're going to want to put your building on top of your monoprint. And that way it looks like, here's your community. This is going to be like the grass, and we just did it in a fun, interesting, artsy way. Here's where we're going to put our house on top of it. So what you would do is you just put a little glue on your tab and glue it down just like that. Or you could glue your big one just like that. And you can put it in the corner, you can put it in the middle, you decide where you put it. What you shouldn't do if you have a long tab, it shouldn't be hanging off the side because that's the part that has to get glued on. Okay? So here is your community building on top of a monoprint.